for our first YouTube for the Addictive Behaviors class, and I'm with Sancho Panza. For those of you that know Don Quixote. No, this is Nicole, my TA, and we are excited for this class. I can tell you that, Nicole, this is probably, if you ask me where my area of specialty lies as a counselor educator, it's in the area of group work and addictions. And so I haven't taught an addictions class in a while, so this is kind of fun to get back into this and to wrap my head around some of the content we're going to be presenting. So just a little bit more about myself, then I'm going to let Nicole jump in here and say hi. So, man, I did my master's in Kent State way back in like 1990. I received my master's, and then I was a clinician for pretty much about a decade, and then transitioned into my doctorate work at the University of Cincinnati in counselor education supervision. Continue to do clinical work. My clinical work is rather limited now just because of my role here at Regent University as an instructor. I've had a good run at things. I've done a lot of addictions work, including residential treatment and working with the needle exchange, outpatient work. And I think I'll kind of just like stop there and turn the floor over to you and let you say hi.
All right. Hello, everyone. So I'm Nicole Walton. I am Dr. Neumeyer's TA. This is my second year working for him. I am a third-year student in the Counselor Education and Supervision program here at Regent. My background actually my licensure is in social work, but I just finished my clinical internship as part of the CES program, so I'll be able to apply for my counselor license when I'm finished with the program. I don't have a lot of direct work in drug and alcohol treatment, but in just the clinical work experience that I've had, most clients have addiction in their story, whether it's personally or family history or, someone that they are, close to. And so that's definitely I've worked, with it indirectly, I guess I would say. I've taught another class as an adjunct faculty on addiction at a community college here where I live. I live in Ohio. Three boys, and just busy like everyone else, but I'm very excited to be teaching this class. I really actually enjoy this topic, so welcome everyone.
So one of the joys I think that I'll find in teaching this class, Nicole, is probably telling a lot of those stories along my own clinical journey as I've worked with individuals, and I was very fortunate. I'm from Ohio, even though I live here in Virginia Beach, Chesapeake area. A lot of my work was done in the Akron, Ohio area, which many of you that are listening and have an understanding of AA will know that AA has a lot of its roots in Ohio. As a matter of fact, I used to take a group of guys once a week to what's considered the second oldest AA meeting in existence. It's I was in a small town. I was in Worcester. You know where Worcester, Ohio is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to just not have a long devotion today, but just start off with a prayer that is out of the AA movement, and it's the prayer that Bill Wilson, so the two founders of AA, Dr. Bob and Bill Wilson. Bill Wilson wrote this prayer as he was doing his own, what would become known as the third step. And so I just wanted to read this prayer. It's a beautiful prayer. It certainly transcends addictions, but just open our time with prayer. I'm going to read it to you so I make sure I get it right. God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help. Of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life, may I do thy will always. Amen. So I may actually come back and use this prayer as a way of closing out, I think, all of the collaborates for the rest of the year, and maybe even different times that I get together with the students online in different things. I might ask us to make this our official class prayer. So I might post this prayer today and an announcement or by email. And I might just ask all of us in the class to think about using this as a way of just like kind of guiding and being our ethos or prayer for the class. Okay, so our goal today is that Nicole and I are going to take you through the syllabus and orient you to what you're going to do. And I'm going to go through this syllabus as quickly as I can because I don't want this to be a really long YouTube. And Nicole will jump in and rescue me whenever she needs to help clarify something because she's listening to it both as a student and as having been in that role. And I will say that Nicole is getting ready to jump into her dissertation work here pretty quick, so just to let you know where she is in that journey. I'm going to spend maybe some time on different parts of this syllabus I wouldn't normally because I understand that many of you are in the beginning of your journey as students at Regent, and you may just need that little extra guidance about what the syllabus is and how it works. Syllabi are not like they were in 1990 when I went to Kent State. They were usually about 3 to 5 pages, maybe a long one was 7 or 8 pages. Now a short syllabus seems to be like a chapter. So here at Regent, of course, we love to talk about our Lord and integrate our faith into it. And so we're asked to have a theme scripture. And so I like this scripture from Proverbs about the purpose of a person's heart are deep waters, but the one who has insights draws them out. And so that will be our verse. On the next page of the syllabi, you have some just some personal bio information on Nicole and I, and you have ways that you can get a hold of us. And I will tell you that I'm probably most responsive to email. So I probably I'm almost obsessive compulsive about checking my email a half a dozen times a day. I typically don't check my email when we start getting into the evening hours. So after 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the evening, I've just kind of started to train myself. I used to check it all the time, but I think I'm just setting a personal boundary and a professional boundary the last couple of years. And I don't check my email very, very much after 6 or 7 in the evening. I also tend not to respond to my emails on Sundays, and I may respond to them on Saturdays. So Saturdays and Sundays are only kind of at my discretion whether I respond to something. So if you send me an email on Saturday morning and you don't hear a response on Sunday, don't panic. I'm just trying to have healthy boundaries in my life and not feel like my email is a ball and chain around me, and just have some kind of moniker of boundaries. So if you can't get a hold of me by email and it's an emergency, you can feel free to text me at my cell phone number or call me. Just if you text me, make sure you identify who it is, because I may not have you in my contacts. And I see a typo in this too. It should be Carlo Di Clemente, not Carlos. I don't know how I did it. So that's a minute ahead in that bio. So Nicole, how about you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Email is the preferred method,
Yeah.
and yes, and I see a typo on mine too. It's that is not my Skype name, so I'll have to clarify that as well.
You stole from me.
I stole yours.
All right.
So yeah, but yes, email for sure, and don't hesitate to ask questions. I really enjoy working with students, and so it's no problem.
So on the next couple of pages, you have some verbiage that's pretty standard kind of material that we have from Regent University, policies about use of technology, the description from the catalog on what this course is. So it presents the psychological and physiological aspects of addictions, explores components of an addictive cycle, empirical supported treatment modalities, relapse prevention, and the approaches in facilitating family and community supports. And so because there, a significant component of this has to do with like some real evidence-based kinds of investigation, I made everybody a required text is this giant tome here. You guys will like this is gargantuan. I didn't realize it was quite this thick of a book. I have the older edition of this, and it was a thick book, but not this thick. They got more long-winded. So it's like a Tom Clancy novel. As Tom Clancy wrote, every book got bigger and longer. I stopped reading them. But this is, I think, a very important text because it is so evidence-based and is cutting edge by leading thinkers in the field. Course description. So every syllabus will be laid out very similar to what we're going through here today. And so if you're taking other classes, you'll notice that our format is consistent across classes. I notice in here, Nicole, that there's a lot of language that about counselor education and ACA and ethics. I'm wondering if Dr. Sells is aware that this language is in here. I'm going to make a note to ask him about this. So skipping on down again, I've kind of alluded to it. The two required texts are the Addictions: A Comprehensive Guidebook, which is a very academic, dense text. You will not be reading all of it, but you will be reading portions of it, and then to kind of balance that out, we have the Will Miller and Rolnack text, Motivational Interviewing, and so we're hoping that over the course of the semester we'll have kind of this deep dive into the academics, into what the leaders are saying about things like how prevalent is cannabis addiction in the United States, and what are the mechanisms that go on in the brain when people smoke pot or use pot. But we'll also then hopefully be balancing out those deep dives with this clinical side, and so diving into some motivational interviewing concepts and having a chance to practice those. If those of you in the class are familiar with motivational interviewing and use it in any of your work, that's tremendous. This is a chance to kind of get in there and go even deeper and reacquaint yourself with what Miller and Rolnack are saying, because this is a fairly new edition of their book, so they've added some content in there. I think one of the areas in this third edition that they've added some content about how generalizable is the motivational interviewing theory, and so there's been a lot of people that quickly grabbed onto motivational interviewing and they used it in everything outside of addictions. And Will Miller was very poignant to say that we need research before we jump there and overgeneralize. And so I think in this edition of the book, they've tried to put some content, I think towards the end of the book, where they really say, okay, so what does motivational interviewing mean if you're working with a client that's just come to you with depression? Or how does motivational interviewing might work with a medical doctor who has a 15-minute follow-up slot with a patient who needs to quit smoking? So that's, I think, some helpful material. So again, the creating Epstein book is kind of a little heady academic, and the motivational interviewing is kind of practical clinical stuff. On the next page are a lot of recommended readings, and so these are just some common resources that another faculty member and myself identified. A couple of them are highlighted in bold because we just wanted them to stand out because they might be important. The one that I would most point out on this list, the first bolded one by Carnes, DeMonico, and Griffin. So Dave DeMonico and I did our master's at Kent State together. And Dave is probably one of the leading experts in the United States around pornography and addictions with pornography. And while we might touch on that lightly in this class is basically about chemical addictions, but I wanted to make sure we touch on it a little bit and have this resource here. And so that's a really great book to read. We'll be looking at some of the common books and texts and materials that are used in the AA community a little bit. So I wanted to make sure I put some of those classic texts down at the bottom too. And so people should feel free to go out and consume these. They should be available through your libraries and online resources. I know all the AA stuff is available online. So learning objectives. Way back a couple years ago, when we were putting together this course, we talked about what is it that we want people, what the objectives and competencies we want people to have as they move through this class. And so they're listed here, and hopefully we'll be hitting most of these, if not all of these, well. So can you give a definition of addictions? And so right off the bat, you'll notice in the early chapters of the McCready-Epstein book, you're going to be talking about, can you define addiction? How has it been defined? And how would somebody at a 12-step meeting define addiction, as opposed to how would maybe ASAM, how would the medical community define addiction? And what's your definition of addiction? And so talking about that, how to assess and evaluate and diagnose in the field of substance use and substance-related disorders is important. So we'll be spending some time on that. What are some common treatments? What are evidence-based treatments? What do we know? Like so many people, especially in the 12-step community, just assume 12-step is the only way to go. And that's an abstinence model. Do we really know that abstinence models is the best way and the only way? Is there any evidence that says that? Is there any evidence that says that you can do kind of a moderation? Can people who are serious alcohol abusers learn to drink moderately? Kind of an interesting question. We assume no, and because we've been so heavily inundated by an abstinence model, but we want to look at those questions. We want to just allow the liberty to ask these questions and be honest with our rigor and our examination of what the evidence is saying. Just to skip on down here a little bit, we want to make sure we talk about prevention. And so what are prevention strategies and treatment protocols that are being used? I was just talking with an expert the other day who was talking to me about what he calls the Swiss cheese model of prevention. And apparently this has some traction. And so I'll be talking about the Swiss cheese model at some point. And then I'll skip on down to just point 6 here. We want to spend a little time in the class talking about special populations. So obviously, how we might treat children and adolescents would look very different to how we would treat adults. What does treatment look like when we account for gender? What does treatment look like when we account for other socioeconomic kind of identifiers? And of course, we always want to be ethical in our work and deliberations and be in alignment with what the laws are. So we want you to understand all those things and have some competency as you come through this class. And I realize that, Nicole, as I'm talking, I know that in this class there are a lot of students who already have some experience around this content. They've just been in the clinical world, they've been doing this, and they're going to bring a lot to bear. And so by no means, and I think Nicole will say this, by no means are Nicole and I the end of truth on everything. we are. I would recommend that as students you see us as facilitating a process rather than being the repository of all correct answers on addictions. And I think and that comes back to a lot of my group training, that there's a lot of power in the group. And so I would think that in all the students that are taking this class, that we would have a lot of students who would have a lot of information to bear. I've done a lot of work in treatment protocols around opioid addiction and using things like LAM and methadone and other kinds of pharmacological interventions. But I would suspect there's people that have insights about pharmacological interventions with opiate addictions that I don't have, because there's just so much out there. So please, students, feel free to bring your expertise into the course appropriately. We want to make room for everyone. We want to be respectful. But yes, there's room for all of us to be engaged. Lastly, let's move down to the general course requirements. So participation and attendance is required. We've had a little bit of back and forth with some of you about making collaborate sessions. I hope that everyone can make those. These are really important. And because some of you have said that there's some really extenuating circumstances that are going to prohibit you from making the collaborates, I've talked with Nicole and Dr. Sells and willing to make some accommodations. But I will say, moving forward in this doctoral program, a distinctive of the Regent program are these collaborative sessions. This is not just a truly online. This is a hybrid program. And we believe that these video, audio, collaborative connections are really critical and make us distinct and make us better than a lot of other training programs. So please know that is an expectation. Nicole and I will try to be very clear about what the expectations are around assignments and deadlines. We're probably at this point only going to be working a couple of weeks out. So as the first time that an instructor teaches a class, it's unlikely that I can tell you exactly what we're going to be doing on week 14 right now. Even though we have a schedule and we'll try to adhere to that, sometimes these assignments are a little bit fluid because of how students are moving through the content and the information. And so we'll probably just try to keep you in like 2-week chunks. So like what are we doing this week and next week? what do we do in the next week? We should begin to tell you what's coming the week after and the week after. And so think of this as like 2-week chunks. I think is a helpful way to do it. Writing, we do expect this is a doctoral program, so I will be giving you feedback on any written documents that you have and expecting it to be in APA compliance. In Blackboard, if we do discussion posts, there can be. I mean, I don't need these to be really fastidiously adhering to APA, but I do need the writing to be well constructed and for thoughts to be coherent. I'm not expecting you to include a reference page necessarily at the end of every discussion board post, unless we would specifically say that. Incomplete grade policies are used for individuals who have not completed the coursework. I would ask you to see the student handbook that the university has about incomplete grading, and if you find yourself not being able to complete assignments throughout the semester, please stay in contact with Nicole and I. Don't disappear. This is the worst thing you can do, is to not be able to submit an assignment and just disappear because of embarrassment. You be proactive and talk to Nicole and I if there's ever a concern around being able to do your work and do it in a timely manner that we've asked. When when an assignment is submitted, we try to turn things around as quickly as we can within a couple of weeks. Now, Nicole, I tell you, if we open up a link for people to submit an assignment, and they submit it a week before it's due, I don't necessarily look at that assignment until the due date and I have all the assignments in. So if you submit something a week early, don't expect that I'm going to get you feedback a week early. I usually wait till all the students have submitted their assignments before I start grading. I take it everybody has a computer that's up to speed, and if you don't and you're worried about your technology, we have a great resource center through the help desk who will step you through and make sure your computers are working. Anything on any of that I need to clarify, Nicole, or my?
No, I think you're on target.
Yeah. Again, on page 10, we talk about using APA writing format. So if you don't have an APA manual, let me show you mine. I have 2 of them. I probably have 3 of them. If you need an APA manual and you have not bought an APA manual, here's my tip for you. Buy the one with the spiral binder to it, because when you go to use it, it will lay flat on your desk and you can have it open and use it as a reference. If you buy one that has a normal traditional bind on it, you can't. It seems like you're always setting a coffee cup or books on it to get it to lay open. So my other one is the one that has coffee stains all over it. That would be the one. Hopefully no one will be withdrawing from the university or from this course. Obviously, we expect integrity. If any of you have, this is a good important one. If any of you need accommodations because of disabilities, Nicole and I cannot give you accommodations unless you are registered with the disability office. So we need that to be documented through disability services, and then they send us communication saying student X or student Y has requested accommodation. We've reviewed the request, and the student needs more time to complete assignments because of attention deficit hyperactive disorder that's been substantiated, whatever the accommodation is. So we cannot give you. I've had a lot of occasions, not a lot, but some occasions where we get to the end of the semester and the student wants accommodations for a disability, and they haven't registered through the disability office. Well, even if you register at that point, I can't go backwards and give you special accommodation for assignments that I can only at that point. And going forward, can I give you accommodations? I can't make accommodations backwards. And so, and why is that? Because to do that would really be unfair. It'd be discriminating against all the other students. So I know some people have some shame and some guilt associated with their disability, and they don't want to ask for accommodation. If you need accommodation, encourage you to try to reach out to disability services and work through that with them. They're very good at helping with that. Again, policies and procedures, you can all find that in your student handbook. Please read your student handbook and become familiar with it if you're not. And now we're getting down to the course schedule. I'm actually going to ask you to go beyond the course schedule and go down to course assignments, which is below that. So really, I've spent a lot of time in the syllabus, but the reality is in every course, every student really is interested in what do we have to do and when is it due? And so that's really the course assignments and the course schedule where we're at right now. So let me go through the course assignments first. So there are basically 6 basic assignments that we are asking you to do in this class. So because this is a big class, there's 40 students in here, we are asking you to do a lot of your work in some small groups. And again, I am a small group expert and I love this kind of stuff, so I've done this with classes before and it works tremendous. And so we're not going to there's no points in that you earn in getting together in groups. It's just a box that we need to click that you are doing that. Nicole, have you sent out the Google Doc to them yet?
It's made. I'm waiting to send it out with the link for this video, so I'll send them both out at the same time.
Okay, so as you're watching this video, you will have a link. We are asking for some basic information about yourselves, which will help us get to know you, but we are going to use it as a driver to form you into small groups. And quite honestly, there's a lot of different ways we can form you into small groups, but we think at this juncture, the most important component in forming small groups are, do you have common time to work together? Because you're going to have to come together with the other students and work on some different tasks and assignments. And so we don't want people on the West Coast who can't get together with people on the East Coast because their times are off. So we're going to really ask you to provide those times as a really important piece of that document.
Dr. Moore, can I say something about the Google Doc real quick?
Yes.
When you get the link for the Google Doc, you need to open it from your Regent account. And so if you open your Google Docs and it automatically pulls from like your Gmail, you won't be able to open the link and it'll send me an email requesting access, etc. And so I'll get a bunch of those. But really, if you just open it from your Regent account, you'll have no problem opening the document.
Oh, good. Oh, that's great information. Yeah, thanks for that. Mm-hmm. So the small groups are going to help us with later assignments. It's going to help us with the learning through discussion assignments, the What Would Jesus Do group project, and some motivational interviewing skills. And so again, just a little bit, we've mentioned this, collaborate and class participation. We expect people to be on time for collaborate sessions. I'm usually try to get on, I often am on 15 or 20 minutes early, sometimes even a half an hour. And the reason I do that is almost always just to make sure my technology is working. And you can just think your technology is going to work, and then it's 2 minutes before class, and you go to get on, and you're like, my iOS just updated, and everything is screwed up. So I typically, now I don't want students to have to get on a half an hour before, but I do think it's a good idea to not cut yourself right to the last minute and just think you're going to be on Collaborate, or you could end up missing things. And so we have 5 required Collaborate sessions, which are equal to basically 20% of your total grade, so 5% for each one. And so we want you to be on time, we want you to stay the whole time, and when appropriate, we want you to participate and be actively involved in what's going on. The next assignment or tasks is the What Would Jesus Do project, and so you'll be assigned in your small groups of approximately 6 to 8 individuals. Each small group will be using a problem-based learning kind of approach to looking at the Gospels. This is really our integration piece in the class. Why I think integration and hopefully conversations about our Lord and the Bible will be peppered throughout the course. This is where we hopefully have a foci, though. And so I'll just mention that Dr. DiClemente and I used to have conversations about the interactions of Jesus with different people in the Bible. And I'll probably make a separate Collaborate around this whole assignment or YouTube to push out to students. And so I'm going to ask you in small groups to be looking at the Gospels and Jesus' interactions and see if Jesus used different interactions with different people to help maybe motivate them to move along in a stage of change kind of manner. And this is actually a project I wanted to do for years, and so I'm just bringing it to the classroom, and we're going to see if all of us together can learn anything from this. Learning through discussion. Some of you may have used learning through discussion in somewhere else in your background. This is a psychoeducation kind of model to help you digest material and to do so in a way that I think is logical and sequential and maximizes learning. And so you're going to have you're going to have 4 required LTD sessions with your peers, this group of 6 to 8 individuals that you'll be in, and you'll be using the learning through discussion to move through some of the content that you're reading over the semester. Now, some of these learning through now you're going to archive or record all of these and collaborate. Some of these you will just be doing, they will be student-led, and the students, you'll just be doing them by yourselves, and we'll be watching them and looking for what's going on in the group and how you guys are making sense of the material, and we have rubrics at the back you can look at. But some of these, either Nicole or myself or Dr. Sells will actually be joining in. So hopefully of these 4, either Nicole or Dr. Sells or myself will be in at least 2 of those. Piece, the motivational interviewing skills. So we want everybody to be able to do one role play that's recorded by the end of the semester. We're going to give you some opportunities to do some other role plays, but those will just be recorded. Those will just be practice rounds. But we'll have a final one that we'll ask you to record again in a collaborate session. So say if Nicole and I were paired with each other, I would be playing a client, and Nicole would be using motivational interviewing strategies to help me move through stages of change and make some changes. And then that would be approximately about a 20 to 30 minute video, and then we would break, and then we would reverse roles and then do another 30-minute session. The last assignment for this class is the fasting exercise. And so I'll just read this. In a broad sense, fasting from the biblical perspective represents a season of time in which a person or group of people set aside normal physical desires as a way of positioning themselves humbly before the Lord. Because abstinence is often a critical component for the individual recovering from addictions, this task asks each student to abstain from something for 4 weeks. Many people will give, and you know what, actually this is going to kind of like come right into like the Easter season, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people do abstain, and so maybe people will give up. Thanks for this. So common things that people give up are things like maybe social media, checking, Facebook, coffee, chocolate, TV. Just a note, whatever you abstain for, it should not be anything that jeopardizes your health or relationships. And so, if you are drinking 20 cups of coffee a day, don't go cold turkey. I actually had a client who was probably drinking at least 20 cups a day, and he tried to stop, and he actually became put his heart into an arrhythmia. So pick something safe. This is not we don't need anybody going to the hospital, or we don't need marriages falling apart because of this. And then you will how you will report out from this. I think we're going to give you a choice. You can either have a small group debriefing experience. Is that what we talked about? Or you can write a journal entry for this final project. So down below, then you see how much each of these assignments is weighted, what the weight is for the total grade in the class. Down below that is the university's standard grading scale. So a 93 and above is what you need for a pure A. And then beyond that, we have some rubrics and some general guides for what our different assignments are and how we'll be evaluating those. Okay, Nicole, anything? Oh, I didn't talk about the course schedule, did I? Should I talk about the course schedule?
Sure. I can go
Yeah,
back.
so real quick, the course schedule. So we have weeks 1 through 16, and this is provides, you'll notice that we never have Sunday listed on there because at Regent, we want you to be off on Sundays. So assignments are never due on Sundays. We always have them due on Saturday nights usually. And if you keep this course schedule handy along with the assignments that we just talked through, I think that's the bulk of what you'll have. And again, Nicole and I will be making sometimes minor adjustments to these things. So if we realize we're getting backed up in the reading, we might kick a chapter to the next week, or it's possible that we could kick some material down. So we can make minor adjustments in the schedule, but we hope to not make a lot of them. This should be fairly stable across time. And certainly the collaborate sessions will be stable. They won't move. These are where they are, and they won't move. So we'll have a collaborate session not until what is that, the third week of the semester on a Tuesday night.
Yes, yeah, week 3.
Okay.
Okay.
Clean up all my mess. What did I miss?
No, it was great. I think that's everything and that you need to know. And if there are any questions, feel free to email us.
Yep. All right, good.
All right, thank you.